Welcome to the deep dive. If you've ever wondered why so many ancient myths, or even our own dreams, have these figures that are both, profoundly nurturing and at the same time deeply terrifying, then you are definitely in the right place.
You've really hit on it.
Today, we're doing a pretty intense analysis of one of the most fundamental concepts in human thought, the archetypal feminine. And we're going to focus specifically on its central manifestation, the Great Mother.
Yeah, the source material you've shared, it's essentially a map of the unconscious mind. It's a deep analysis of how human consciousness interacts with these foundational psychic structures.
So we're not just talking about myths as stories.
No, not at all. We're looking at archetypes as structural concepts. The sources call them images of an eternal presence that are constantly shaping our collective and individual behavior.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Our mission here feels pretty critical. We need to understand the Great Mother not as a single figure, but through her two essential and often contradictory energies.
That's the core of it. The research divides the whole feminine experience into two principles: the elementary character and the transformative character.
And that's the heart of our deep dive. We need to define those, understand what they do, and then see how they play out in the myths that really still define us today.
To do that, we have to start where everything begins, which is in the undifferentiated unconscious. Before anything is anything, there's just this archetype and psyche.
The archetype in itself.
Exactly, formless and whole. And as consciousness slowly begins to emerge, this vast presence starts to fragment. So when we talk about the primordial archetype, we're talking about the genetic root of these images before they've broken down into their individual forms.
And the symbol for this beginning, this state of total blissful and terrifying unity, is the Ouroboros, right? The great round.
The snake eating its own tail. Yeah.
It's the perfect symbol.
It is. It's the perfect encapsulation of that state because it's profoundly paradoxical. The sources call it polyvalent. It contains all meanings, positive and negative, birth and death, all just merged into one. It's pure potential energy waiting to be separated.
So how does that separation actually happen in, say, human culture? We need a concrete example, something that shows the path from that formless thing into a specific conscious symbol.
We can trace it with the archetype of the way. Initially, it's not a symbol. It's just an unconscious ritual.
You mean like an action?
An action, exactly. Think of prehistoric men. They enter these dangerous mountain caves, navigating these difficult paths, and they're driven by survival, by magic. They're establishing the first temples in these natural routes. They're following a way without ever naming it.
So it's the physical act of going from the known world to the unknown center.
Precisely. But then later in a more advanced culture, that archetype emerges as a very conscious ritual. You see this so vividly in Egyptian temples or at Buddhist sites like Borobudur.
Where the path is laid out for you.
It's a fixed, deliberate pathway. The worshiper moves sequentially from the periphery to the sacred center. It's now a planned spiritual journey.
And its highest, most differentiated form.
The highest form shifts entirely inward. It becomes a completely psychic path. The physical journey is superseded by a spiritual one of redemption. The most profound example is in Christ's conscious statement, "I am the way."
Wow.
It's transformed from a winding cave path into a philosophical and spiritual declaration. And the same evolution is the process our Great Mother figure undergoes, splitting her Ouroboros totality into specific active energies.
So the Great Mother herself, she manifests in this wreath of symbolic images, everything from kind goddesses to fairies and terrifying demons. But her core character is this primal union of opposites.
Yes, and that brings us to the two forces she embodies. The first is the elementary character, or axis M. This represents the conservative principle in the psyche.
Conservative, meaning it wants to keep things the same.
Its primary aim is stasis, to preserve, to hold fast, and to ensure continuity.
And when we say elementary, are we talking mostly about the physical world, the material?
Absolutely. Its efficacy is overwhelmingly corporeal and material. It's focused entirely on the continuation and the security of existence. If you need a single image, this is the Great Mother as the ultimate protective vessel.
Okay, so what symbols do we see around the world that reflect that idea of containment? I'm thinking of things like houses, nests.
The sources list all of those: the nest, the cradle, the ship, the coffin, the hut, the house. But there are more subtle ones, too. Like the clay vessel is often a symbolic stand-in for the woman herself.
Even the mountain.
Even the mountain.
Huh?
It falls right into this category because it represents shelter.
I love the connection the sources make to German concepts here.
It's so evocative.
Yeah.
The mountain, or the burg, the castle or fortress, it relates directly to Geborgenheit.
Which we don't have a perfect English word for.
We don't. But it's that feeling of deep psychological safety, of warmth, of being utterly sheltered. The mountain or the cave, the natural temple, is where you are safe from the outside world, held fast by the mother.
So that's the positive pole of the elementary character. We can call it M+. This is the great and good mother, giver of life, nourishment, protection. What does she look like in art?
She's most recognizable in the prehistoric world. I mean, think of figures like the Venus of Willendorf.
Right.
They have gigantic breasts and bellies. They don't really have faces or limbs for action. Their entire being is just focused on being a rounded vessel. She is the sole reality of fertility. She protects, she feeds, she welcomes.
It sounds incredibly comforting, but of course containment can also be terrifying. If something contains you entirely, it can also swallow you.
Exactly. And this leads to the negative pole, M-. This is the terrible mother, where preservation turns to destruction. The womb, the vessel, it becomes a devouring maw. Her functions are diminution, devouring, and extinction.
What are the psychological forms of that before we even get to the scary myths?
Psychologically, this is the mother who withdraws love entirely. It leads to feelings of absolute loneliness, exile, distress. It's the abandonment of the inner child. But actively, in myth, the containment turns lethal.
And this is where we find some really shocking archetypes.
This is where we encounter the vagina dentata, the feminine portal bristling with teeth. This is Kali, the blood-drinking goddess of death, or the witch who starves children.
And the sources are really clear on this point. The elementary negative pole, M-, culminates in physical death. It's corporeal, it's the end of the body, the return to the earth as the final vessel.
It is the ultimate stasis. It stops all motion.
Now, let's pivot to the other side of the Great Mother. The one is not about stasis, but about motion and change. And this is where it gets really interesting for me, because the transformative character, Axis A, is such a profound contrast to the material world of Axis M.
Axis A is the dynamic driving principle, where M is corporeal, A is psychic and spiritual. It pushes consciousness toward motion, change, and sublimation. It's the force that says, you can't stay here, you must evolve.
And how does this Axis A relate to Axis M at the beginning?
Well, it starts out contained within the elementary character. I mean, think about pregnancy. It's a process of containment, which is M, but the transformation into motherhood, for both mother and child, that's an undeniable action of A.
So transformation and stability are always working together.
Always.
Okay, so what does positive transformation A+ look like in its purest form?
A+ is the sublimation of the feminine into feminine spirit, into vision and profound inspiration. It can manifest ecstatically, which links it historically to figures like Dionysus or rituals of frenzy that, transcend normal consciousness. The goal is spiritual ascent.
And this culminates in Sophia, the archetype of wisdom. But why do the sources insist that this feminine wisdom is different from the masculine spirit?
That is a crucial distinction. The masculine spirit is often seen as abstract, transcendent, totally separate from the earth. Sophia, or feminine wisdom, remains incorporate. It's connected to the material foundation of reality.
So it's spiritual knowledge, but it hasn't abandoned the body or the earth.
Exactly. The sources use this beautiful analogy. The wisdom is like the scent of a blossom. You perceive it spiritually, but it is rooted entirely in the physical flower.
That makes the transformation feel much more attainable, grounded in reality.
It does. It's transformation with matter, not away from it.
Okay, but if M- was physical death, what is the negative pole of the transformative character? What's A-?
A- is spiritual psychic death. Here, the functions are transformation, dissolution, rejection, and deprivation, but all on a psychological plane. And this leads not to the body dying, but to madness.
Help me understand why that distinction between physical death and psychic death is so critical.
Because they target different parts of the self. M- annihilates the ego's vessel, your body, and ends life on earth. A- annihilates the ego's structure consciousness itself, which leads to regression.
And the symbols reflect that difference.
They do. A- involves the negative, intoxicant, poison, stupor things that regressively dissolve consciousness and break down the internal ordering of the mind.
So the figures that embody A- are focused on seduction, on dislodging your consciousness.
Precisely. This is the sphere of the young witch, as opposed to the old witch, who often embodies M- and is trying to kill you physically. A- figures like Lilith or Circe, they're alluring, but they lead to doom by dislodging your ego.
Yeah.
They turn you into an animal or plunge you into psychosis.
They dissolve your identity, which is a spiritual death.
It is.
It's just fascinating how the Great Mother governs this entire spectrum. Physical safety, physical annihilation, spiritual ascent, and psychic destruction.
Her totality encompasses everything. The two characters really define the entire range of human experience, and that constant tension we all feel between staying stable and undergoing profound dynamic change.
Let's look at how this paradoxical unity plays out in some global mythologies. The sources argue that the matriarchal mysteries, even the most spiritual ones, always require a symbolic return to the feminine.
Right. Rebirth, universally, follows the symbolism of birth. You have to die by returning to the mother vessel, the cave, the ship, the cauldron, the earth, in order to be reborn. The transformation mysteries always remain incorporate. They stay connected with matter, producing a quintessence that's rooted in the physical.
The tree is maybe the most perfect symbol of this synthesis we have, because it seems to defy being categorized as just M or A, positive or negative.
It holds that Ouroboros nature perfectly. The tree is female, a vessel, fruit-bearing, containing, protective, like a nest.
But it's also male.
It's also fiercely male. The earth phallus, the trunk shooting up toward the sky, it symbolizes birth, the nest or the crib, and at the same time death, the coffin, the cross, the gallows. It's both elementary and transformative.
The sources have this incredibly potent look at the Aztec world, which shows a sophisticated patriarchal solar culture that was built right on top of a foundational, terrifying matriarchal structure, ruled by the Great Mother, the Snake Woman.
That culture reveals a powerful identity of opposites that really shocks modern sensibilities. The Aztec Great Mother required these terrible blood sacrifices for the renewal of fertility. And the most profound insight from the sources is the conceptual linkage in their rituals.
This is the part that needs real focus. The conceptual action of to take a prisoner, to bear a child, and to die in childbed were seen as identical acts of sacrifice and creation.
Yes, the individual, the victim, or the mother, was symbolically functioning as both male and female, as both mother and son. The shedding of blood in battle, the giving of blood in childbirth, and the heart torn from a prisoner were all seen as equivalent regenerative acts.
Feeding the cosmic cycle.
Feeding the cosmic cycle, which was maintained by the terrible mother. The warrior's sacrifice, tearing out the heart, the eagle's fruit, for the son was necessary to nourish the solar conscious principle.
But the ultimate regenerative power, that dark, fertile, ever-present force, still belonged to the great and terrible mother, lurking in the dark aspect of the unconscious.
It shows that even in a highly patriarchal system, the deep foundational power of the feminine, both for creation and destruction, has to be continuously appeased.
It demonstrates the immense cost of moving from that Ouroboros unity into differentiated consciousness. You have to perpetually pay tribute to the totality.
You do.
Our final thread in this tapestry of paradox is the Great Mother as the weaving goddess of fate, the Greek Moirai, the Germanic Norns. This feels like axis M and axis A just totally intertwined.
The whole concept of weaving life is fundamentally feminine. I mean, the Greek word mitos meant the male seed as a woven thread, which shows that the physical body, the very fabric of existence, is seen as being spun by the feminine principle. She determines your fate, the length of your thread, the pattern of the cloth.
And fate is cyclic, which brings us back to the symbol of the mill.
The mill is the perfect double-sided symbol of fate. It's nourishing, it grinds the grain for bread and sustained life. But it's also deathly. It represents aimless, endless recurrence. We hear that familiar phrase, the mills of the gods grind slowly, which is the great round samsara, the eternal cyclical movement that the Great Mother presides over.
So we've seen that the archetypal feminine is just complex beyond measure. She is the elementary character of preservation, axis M, offering physical safety but threatening physical death. And she is the transformative character, axis A, offering spiritual ascent but threatening psychic dissolution and madness.
She's the vessel, the hunter, Sophia, and the young witch all at once.
The whole process of psychic development, from the lowest material encapsulated existence to the highest spiritual transformation, is entirely contained within her totality.
And our ability to navigate existence depends on recognizing and balancing these four poles within ourselves and within our culture.
So for you, the learner, this knowledge is a really powerful lens. We've seen how the sources observe that even in the Christian sphere, the Virgin Mary holding the dead adult Jesus in her lap, the Pietà, is psychologically identical to the primitive vessel, the urn, that shelters both the child and the adult corpse. So, how does truly understanding the profound ambivalence and totality of the Great Mother encompassing birth, physical death, spiritual ascent, and psychic rebirth change the way you perceive traditional figures and symbols, not just in mythology, but in the modern search for meaning?